Right, now I just want to talk to you about the Speedy Six Activity 6, Part 2, and also as how it kind of relates to the phonics screening test. Think about in this, the children are asked to read pseudo words. Now, it's different than our Activity 6 because our Activity 6 are real words but with the wrong sound pics. So this might be an example. So think about, this is a real word. If you say Ed said, that said is a real word. But what we want the children to do is to think, okay, if that's a real word said, what's wrong? Okay, that E could be a representation for the S sound. Have a look in the air cloud, but actually in this word it's not. In this word it's this one. So it's that kind of concept, and what we're doing is we're getting the children to look at the Orthographic Mapping and think, does it look right? But we're really checking what they know could happen, actually as a way to make sure that they don't spell a word like this when they're actually writing. Now, so in Activity 6, Part 2, and if you're not sure, say just Google the Speedy Six. Did I just say that? So if this was a word here, first of all, we'd say to the children, right, you use your knowledge of print to speech. You know, what could this word be? So what they do is they go through and they think, well, I know that's not going to be, you know, a p or a d or an e or whatever. I know that's likely to be, and this is where we see what they know. So if I do this in teacher training, I can see what they know. Now they're going to say to me, okay, well, for a start, I know because of spelling patterns, that is going to be like that because there's no grapheme that's an SO. That's going to be on its own because there's no grapheme that's a OB, and actually that could be separate or it could be together because that could be a grapheme. So let's have a think, and that's what they're doing. It's process of elimination, and then they'll think, okay, so this S here, what could it represent? And I can see straight away in teacher training who's been using SSP, because a lot of people only say S. Some people go Z, you know, like in was or is. You know, the S often represents a Z, but it's often only SSP teachers that go, oh, it could be a sh, etc. So, and the O, it's often, teachers will often say, oh, it's an O, and I'll say, okay, but what else could it be? And a lot of teachers in training, first of all, have never thought about what else it could be, also because they're not code mapping all the time. So they've not thought about the fact that it could be an it could be it could be an O. It could be, well, have a think about, you know, the code. It could be an or. Think about what it could be. So when they're doing that, they're thinking, okay, so is it s or s, you know, and they're thinking about all the combinations. What I'll then say to them is I'll give them a clue, and I might say to them, okay, so I can't remember what this word is now. Hold on. It is. Oh, I know what it was. Okay. So I will think about I'll give them a clue. So I might say to them something like, oh, I don't like it. Hold on, what might I do? Let me think of a clue. The clue might be, if I'm cold, I'm going to do this to the door, let's say. And a lot of the children will use there. So again, it's that verbal intelligence. What does it mean? What am I saying? What's the clue? It's all about language. And some of the children will go, okay, shut. I'm going to shut it. Okay. Okay, well, let's have a look. Could this be shut? If it's shut, shut, it's got to be 3. Shut. Could the S be a representation for the sh sound? Well, have a look. That's the phonetic symbol. That's our monster. That's just a character as an alternative to a phonetic symbol. So sh. So could it be? Yes, it could. Oh, so far so good. So my clue of, if I'm cold, I'm going to want to do this to the door. Oh, could it be that? And then the O, that if it's shut, shut, that's got to be an So they're exploring the clouds, which is again all working towards orthographic mapping. Could it be? Oh, yes, it could. So the O could be an like in the word Monday. Okay, so far so good. Shut. Okay, could this be a representation for the T? Yes, and they go, I know what it is. It's shut. So the speech sound frog changes them. It should be sh, t, shut. So we got the right phonemes, the right number of graphemes, but they were the wrong sound pics. And that exploration that we're doing in the Speedy 6 Activity 6 Part 2 is just gold. And the children love it because they think of their own. So during the week, they think of their own, put it in a jar. When it comes to activity 6, I take it out. And they love it because I often don't know what it is. So I had a child give me this one. And I look at that, and with my knowledge of the code, I think, what on earth could that be? Now, what happens as well is the more you become aware of code, you know, phonographic mapping, you can actually say to your children, like grade 5, sorry, I fell into the trap there of giving it a level. Some of my 6-year-olds can do this. So I'll say to them, do you know what? Not only have you've got to give a different representation for the sound, but it's got to make sense. So like here, you know, this wouldn't happen like that in a word, or would it? So that's what you want to be doing when you're looking through, is thinking, okay, the activity becomes harder because it's not just the thinking about the sounds in the word and a different representation that are in the clouds, which helps them stretch them outside of just their 4 code levels. It's got to follow tradition, you know, it's got to follow English spelling patterns. Okay, so this word was... What was this word? This word was, okay, I'll give you a clue. I can eat it for breakfast. Hold on. I can eat it for breakfast, and it's got a K after it. I can't think of a clue, so it's my vote. Okay, so special K. So think about the actual graphemes here, the mapping here. Special, 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 special. So that's the schwa just there, isn't it? And there's the sh. Think about anything else that is new to you there. So let's just have a look if they did do that. So special. So can the C represent the S? Yeah, of course it can. Can the PP represent the P sound? Yes, of course it can. Can the A represent the S sound? So sp, sh, all special. Let's just map it like that because we know what the word is. So can that be right? Yes. Can that be right? Yeah. Can that be an S sound? Let's have a look in our air cloud. Yes, it can, like in the word many. Okay, so sp, sh. Well, we know that. I think we looked at that a second ago. And then this is the schwa. Think about, that's a split vowel digraph. So the R is one of the ones that we would have in our schwa cloud, wouldn't it? Because the R is the representation for the sound. Fire. Fire. That's the sound. Okay, so sp, sh, all special. Oh, that wasn't. Sorry, they must have run out of their imagination. Okay, so yes, that absolutely could be special, and that's what it actually looks like with the correct ones. But you can see what's happening here is that we're mapping phonemes to graphemes, and we're not just looking at the high frequency ones. We're exploring the whole code in a fun. It's inquiry-based learning, and the kids love it. But the kids, this is what you do. So if you come to an unfamiliar word, and there was a word that I used to use in training all the time, you know, I don't do it anymore because people expect it. But I just choose a word. This is a word that's a real word in the dictionary, but most teachers won't have used it, so they don't know how to pronounce it. So I say to them, here you go. Can you say this word aloud? And they go from the left to the right, and they do exactly what we're doing here. Is thinking, what could it be? This happens to be a correct, real word, but that's what you do when you're reading any words. Now, let me go to this, which is just what I wanted to talk about. This is the end of year 1. Now, I check for phonemic awareness early, and I actually would be checking my prep children, my kindergarten children for this, because of the way I teach, which is differentiated teaching. The children are very independent, getting on with the activities. Doesn't matter if I've got 25 or 50 kids, unless there's an actual intellectual impairment. So we're talking sort of 85+% of my children, I would be expecting them to pass this by the end of their very first year of school, because of the way I teach. Regardless of wherever I am, whether I'm in a school where it's English as a second language predominantly, whether it's a low socioeconomic area and they're coming with poor language, whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay, now, in this test, so when I've sort of talked about my issues with this test. There are various issues that aren't necessarily the issues other people have. One of the major issues that I have is the nonsense words. And I tell you why, because our kids are doing this. So if our kids look at this word, they're going to go, okay, well that could be, is it, because it's a nonsense word. So it's just got to, and to be honest, it doesn't even say in there, it's got to follow English spelling patterns. Well, I'll have a look in a minute. But so here, our kids will be saying, okay, so is it shut? Is it, what can the U represent? And they'll have looked at this to see all the different, all the different choices that U could have represented, like or. So is it short? Is that T a ch sound? Like in picture, is the T a ch? So is it shutch? It's a nonsense word, and they will love that because they will love to explore it. And you can't even say, well, it doesn't follow spelling patterns, because if they're saying, is that sh or short, shook or whatever, well, sugar. They've already seen that pattern, sh or. So why shouldn't it be? But so my issue is that in the guidance, if I can find it, in the guidance it says some of the graphemes used represent a number of different phonemes. Yes, absolutely. So they have to correct blah, 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 blah. However, when decoding a pseudo word, all plausible alternative pronunciations are acceptable. And that's great, but you've only got a few minutes to do the test, and our kids would be spending ages saying, well, it could be this, it could be this. So that word could be about, could be lots and lots of, if you're into maths, you'll know how many combinations that could be. And that's fine. But when it comes to this, and remember, most teachers have never done this. Most teachers would have no clue that the S could represent all these different sounds, etc. So in the guidance, it says, here's what's acceptable. From SIP, this item used this from SIP and rhymes with cut. So they're expecting there to be sut. All regional pronunciations of the U are acceptable. So they're saying it could be sut or soot. But what about all of the others? So if our kids were being tested by people who didn't know what the children are doing, they would mark them as incorrect, even though our children would be working at a much higher level. So that's the kind of issue that I have with the test, not the test itself. I've got never got an issue with, assessing and monitoring kids. I just think it's, end of year one, for goodness sake, if they're not passing this by the end of year one, the teaching has to change. So it's not my issue with nonsense words, because nonsense words are a really good way to see the phoneme to grapheme mapping they know, which is exactly what we're doing in the Speedy Six activity 6. Activity 6. It's seeing in different words, do you know the actual mapping, or just, see, that's what the phonics test is testing. The phonics testing, it's only testing these high frequency ones, which is only about 100. But actually, there are about well over 350 different variations, which is what the children are learning when they're looking at their speech sound wall and their spelling clouds. So these are the kind of things that I think about when I'm looking at this kind of stuff. And I know that this, when I talk about it, it sort of goes over the head of a lot of people, even people who create this stuff. So that's really why I want you guys in the group to understand why everything I do, whether it's the Speedy Six, Activity 6 with nonsense words, whatever, a real word. I do like to have real words, but, anyway, that's why I do all of this, because I want to focus on the children optimal learning. I want them to know this could represent lots and lots and lots and lots of words, not just the two choices that seem to be there for somebody who is testing the children, who might go to our kids, well, your kids are failing because they're coming up with all sorts of weird things. So I need people who are delivering testing and who are teaching to understand this stuff. And the best way to do that is to be in the group, the orthographic mapping group, and to just follow what I'm doing and just let yourself think about the fact of 4 and 5-year-olds are doing this. This isn't working year 5 and 6. 4 and 5-year-olds are doing this because we're focused on the learning process, and that is what orthographic mapping is all about. Get your spelling clouds.